Hi, Charlie. This month, I wrote a short story that I will read for you called The Guardian of the Crystal Forest. I hope to create images for future writing videos, but for this one, you don't need to watch. You can just listen. The Guardian of the Crystal Forest. Lillian pulled the fleece blanket up from her lap to snuggle deeper into its cozy warmth. She set her cup of almost finished tea on the side table, leaned back in the wicker deck chair, and gently closed her eyes. It was her ritual, you see, to doze in the afternoon sun on the back porch. Lillian was 85. She just didn't have the energy that she used to. But on those warm, sunny afternoons, she could close her eyes and remember another time. A time when she was just Lily, just a girl from a simple town on the outskirts of the Crystal Forest. It was not so much a town as it was a trading post along the road running between the great port city to the west and the mountain kingdom in the north. The soil wasn't as fit for farming as the flatlands nearer to the sea, nor did the Crystal Forest yield other resources like timber or game. The Crystal Forest was as forbidding as it was beautiful, and only a few insisted on living on its borders. Lily was born there. She knew of and wished for nothing else. Her family earned a living by a long and laborious process of extracting rare minerals from the crystalline deposits at the edge of the forest. She was the youngest in her family and the only girl. While her parents and older brothers worked in the refinery, she was often left on her own to amuse herself. She would read or run off to visit the neighbors or village elders. But whenever no one was looking, she would slip away into the spires of the Crystal Forest. The glassy blue-green columns reached and branched taller than any tree Lily had ever seen. The paths between the giant crystals were mostly grassy, and pink and orange flowering plants, along with a few hardy fir trees, grew in amongst the rocks and spires. And when the air was cold and the wind blew strong through the foothills where they lived, the Crystal Forest would sing. It always began with a single note that rang out a low-pitched hum. Then, as the wind pressed on, other tones would join in. Every song the forest sang was a little different from the one before, yet every time it would draw Lily in deeper and deeper. It wasn't because the forest was dangerous that Lily had to sneak away to play in it, but because it was enormous, and the density and geometric similarity of the crystals made it very easy to lose your way. Many times Lily couldn't figure out her way to the village and had to wait patiently for the forest song to quiet so that she could hear the voices and sounds of work coming from town to find her way back. One day, when she had followed the music into the forest and got herself thoroughly lost, she found herself waiting and waiting for the sounds to die down, but they just wouldn't stop. Gray clouds started to fill up the golden afternoon sky, and Lily was worried that it was going to rain. As soon as a few drops hit her face, she decided unwisely to go further into the Crystal Forest to find some shelter until the winds and singing subsided. The rain got heavier, and the song grew louder as she wound her way between the spires. Eventually, she heard another sound. It was a whooshing sound coming from a small river that rushed through the crystals. Not having many options, she decided to follow it. There were more trees along its banks than in other parts of the forest, and they provided better protection from the rain. Soon enough, Lily discovered that it wasn't so much the river that was creating the loud whooshing sound, but was rather that the river poured off a cliffside in a waterfall that fell into a ravine. The rain had finally stopped, and the singing crystals were quieting. Sunlight began to filter through the heavy clouds, but Lily had never seen this place before, and she couldn't hear any sounds of the village. She didn't know what to do, and sat down and cried. Lily wasn't sure how long she sat there sobbing with her head in her hands, but only that the sound of a low groan startled her tears away. She looked up and immediately jumped to her feet. Before her, standing at the bottom of the ravine and reaching up as tall as the fir trees on the riverbank, was a gigantic monster. Except for parts of its face, it was covered head to toe in long, light brown fur that had a blue, green, and purple iridescent shine in the rays of the sun. Lily backed away, but couldn't take her eyes off the monster. It gave her a puzzled look, and then crossed its arms on the cliff's edge and rested its large head on top of them. The creature seemed peaceful, and Lily began to feel a little calmer. She looked into its big brown eyes. They were bright and gentle. It seemed that the creature understood Lily was in trouble. It lifted its head and pointed to her, then pointed in the direction back up the river. Next, it tilted its head up toward the sky and sang a perfect low C note. In the distance, where it had pointed, a resonant note called out. Lily hesitated. The creature pointed again at her, then up the river and sounded its C note again, to which a distant crystal spire replied. Lily bowed to the creature in thanks and followed the sound of the crystal up the river. When she reached it, another note sounded from back at the cliffside and was echoed by another crystal further ahead. She followed the sounds until she could no longer hear the call from the giant being. Eventually, the path of notes led her back to the edge of the forest, and she could hear and see her little home village. It was nearly dark by now, and her family had noticed her absence. They called out her name, searching for her. She let out a long sigh before responding to their call. She knew she would be in trouble, and she was right. Her parents quickly went from relief to anger upon their reunion. In the following weeks, she had to stay in sight and do the most boring chores that made her hands dry and itchy. But she told no one of what she saw in the crystal forest. Instead, she insisted that she had only lost track of time. After some months, things settled down and returned to something closer to normal. The next time Lily found herself alone, listening to the song of the crystal forest, she decided to visit one of the village elders rather than risking another adventurous mishap. The elder's name was Nora, and she was well known to have incredible knowledge of the crystal forest. Lily confided in Nora her story of getting lost and encountering the giant creature. When Lily was done with her story, Nora was silent for a long time. Lily wondered if she had gone to sleep, but eventually Nora spoke. "I have seen him too," she said, "though I know of only 2 others who have. He is the guardian of the crystal forest. Little is known about him, and most believe he is a myth. Do not seek him out. You will never find him that way. But if you are lucky, he may come to you again, in his own way and in his own time." Lily was pleased to hear this, and she followed Nora's instruction to never go looking for him. And in that way, she was indeed lucky and saw the guardian of the forest many times in her long life.